Hi, everyone. This is Marilyn Bradford, and I would like to welcome you to my Left Turn podcast. What is your left turn? Writing a blog, parenting in a different way, letting go of the old because you are aware of something greater. Left turns are choices we can all make. It's about a willingness to step into the unknown in any area of your life, to trust yourself, to risk creating or trying something new. It's about letting your true uniqueness shine. The greatest people who have lived, artists, statesmen, writers, explorers, musicians, have all been people willing to turn left. What capacities do you have that you have not acknowledged? What would your life and the world be like if you were willing to turn left? Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Left Turn podcast. And I have one of my absolute favorite people here, who's really essentially a walking left turn, Désirée DuMonde. She does so many things, is out there so much, it's really almost difficult to describe, but she is an incredible performer. Voice, she does opera, she does other things, she teaches students, she empowers people. And the other thing is she has a ton of fun doing it, which is one of the things that comes through. So I'm just delighted to have this gift to the world today with me, Désirée DuMonde. Welcome, Desiree.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. I love your podcast and I adore you. So how much fun can we have?
How much fun can we have? Well, let's start with, I've got my notes kind of mixed up here, but because what's coming up is baked tilapia, but I don't think that's what we're really talking about.
That's so good. That's yummy. I love tilapia.
Yeah, I do too. So let's start out with some of your favorite left turns and some of the left turns that have created the greatest for you.
Wow. Well, I know when we originally talked about this and I thought about it, I got laughing and I was asking my partner, I was like, what do you think are those standout left turns? And he's like, babe, you are a left turn. When you're not in a left turn, that's when there's something to worry about. So, and we've known each other our whole lives. So he knows me even as a kid. And it's kind of funny because, it all really, like, I didn't know that it was a left turn for other people. I did know I was different. I did know I thought it was like airy fairy or dreamy or high imagination. But ever since I was little, man, I would have something shiny out there in the world. I would target it and I would ask for it and I would actualize it. And
just right there, that you knew to do that. That's stunning. I would target it, I would ask for it, and I would actualize it.
Yes. I did that as a little kid. Like, I wanted a blue Schwinn sparkly bike. I actually wanted the trike first, and I actualized it. Then I got the bicycle, and I even generated the money. I generated the color I wanted, the sparkles on the handles, made it happen, pulled it into my universe. And I was also willing to like do whatever I had to do. So as a little kid, it was just like, I desire that, I demand for it. What's it going to take? And so this is the most fun example to like tie childhood into that childhood demand into who I am now today. I remember like just growing up on fairy tales, and I grew up in Colorado, and all I ever wanted was to somehow see a castle, carry a candle through a castle, experience the secret garden, experience, some Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale experience. And so I didn't buy that it was a fairy tale. I was like, I'm going to get there. I'm going.
Cool. You knew that magic could be your life. You knew that. That's amazing.
Like living magic.
Living magic. Yeah. I love that.
And even with the settings, it was like I wanted to see the rainy moors of the UK, and I wanted to see Italy so desperately, and I wanted to hear a real opera singer because I saw opera on TV, and So those were things that seemed so impossible to reach in the
Yes.
suburbs of Colorado, but I just kept pulling. And then I started to do things like I started to save my own money and I wanted my own little account. And I started to like, anytime I'd go to a garage sale and something matched, like my room could feel like a castle, I'd buy it. And
Oh, cool.
I wanted this long nightgown so I could walk around in my room and be in like a dreamland. And it was all these things as a kid, right? But then sure enough, I took myself to the UK, to London when I was 14, and my parents didn't even have passports. And I got a passport and I paid for my
Wow.
flight and I went with my band and choir and I got to sing and perform in all these amazing
Oh,
places
wow.
and run in the fields of daffodils. And I remember, so this is what the long story short, I remember like braiding my hair and I was in Oxford and I was taking it all in and it was all dreamy and I had decided maybe I'm just dreamy, but I paid for it. I made
Yeah.
it happen. And
Yes.
it hit me in that moment that I could create anything, no matter how airy fairy, fairy tale, magic miracle everyone else judged it as. And I knew then that the judgment of magic was a lie and the creation of living
Ooh,
it
that's
was
lovely. The
yeah,
judgment of magic was a lie. Wow.
totally. The living magic is available for all of us and it doesn't have to look like anything. It doesn't have to look like what I found magical at that age or now I'm different at this point, but um the judgments of magic and miracles trivialize and take away people's desire and demand to have like that effervescence in every choice that you make.
Yeah. And they go, well, what's the point? It's like they've created this glass ceiling of this reality. This is what science says is real. This
Yeah.
is what my father, my church, my mother, my
Mm,
school, everything says is real. And there's nothing beyond that.
yeah.
It makes me
I know
almost
it.
choke.
And when I'm around that kind of mentality where everybody's buying into those structured and strong points of views, I remember when I started to wonder, like maybe I'm crazy and maybe I should like be more serious and maybe they all have a point because there's a lot of people going that way rather than this way, right?
Mhm.
Not a lot of left turners. So
Not so
maybe I'm
many.
crazy. Maybe this is nuts. And I definitely have had phases of my life that I tried to do right turns and be serious and try to stick to the rules. But every time, man, every time I would do that, I would dig in and I would find out that it was all lies.
Yes. Yes. I don't know why this phrase came up, but this reality's straight and narrow. I mean, how constrictive is that?
Mm.
Follow the rules, do it. I mean, the way you the way you just be, Desiree, is expansive in possibilities and butterflies and opera and fairies, and I love it.
Well, and the funny thing is I'm not very good at following rules. So if anyone out there is listening and you've made excuse me, you've made yourself wrong because you're not very good at following rules.
Yes.
I made myself wrong until I found the tools of access. Like I would still create an enchanted things.
Yes.
That even means not just that I did become an opera singer and I started to go to Europe a lot in my life and I created a pretty enchanted life. I got to give myself some points here. But it wasn't that as much as I still would have enchantment just sitting in like in college. I completely designed my dorm room into this dream and everybody knew about my dorm room and everybody would come, so I started to make money doing haircuts because people wanted to come see my room and get their haircut, and I made bank like
Cool.
cutting hair in college because I had all these cool things and I made this space magical.
Yes.
And so it isn't always about these big extreme choices. It was like it's the little things. But the when you try to do the straight and narrow, and if you're making yourself wrong, then that was one of the greatest windows for me to access because I kept thinking, I'm crazy. I need to like be serious here. And then I'd be really serious and I'd be like, this is all lies. Then
Yeah.
I get really confused because I'd be like, this is lies, but this feels wrong. So And then I found access, and that gave me my awareness. That gave me permission to trust my awareness, really. And more than permission, gave me tools, tools to be able to have my back and not be looking to all the points of views out there about straight and narrow or airy fairy. Like none of that is true.
Yes.
All like none of either.
None of that is true.
True.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and what is true, for you might not be true for somebody else. That's the thing. These absolutes.
Oh, these absolutes. The absolutes out there can be very seductive because, there's an energy to them. People they gravitate toward gravity.
I want to hang on to something.
Right, because there's some sense of scarcity or fear underneath. And again, just a shout out to these tools, because the more I really asked questions, not just like I'm a book nerd. I read all of Gary, well, not all of them, but many books right away. I just gobbled them up because I couldn't believe when I'd read Gary's books, I could trust me. It just seemed so absurd. Like I should trust me, but this reality functions from that gravitas of absolutes is more valuable than what you have for you. And what you have for you is like, nobody's gonna validate what you know for you. And so there's this slew of tools and things that obviously, if you're listening to Marilyn, then you're probably playing with these tools. But even recently, whenever I get in a crunchy place, I realize I'm gravitating toward some majority rules or making myself wrong, rather than, wait a minute, let's ask some questions. This is me and me.
Yes.
What do I like? If I'm going to do this the way I did as a kid, I didn't have enough. As a kid, I didn't have enough interest to make all the adults' points of views as relevant as I did later in life.
Interesting.
So as a kid, I hadn't bought into everybody as much as we do maybe as a young adult.
Mm-hmm. And
so sometimes I'll just be like, okay, Desiree, stop acting like everybody else's point of view matters. If you were 8 years old, what would you know right now? And then it's like freedom, because one of the things, gosh, I'm going really all over the place in my other class. But one of the things that I noticed in my late teens, early 20s was I started to really value those absolutes, especially in my parents and my teachers and my first employers, because that was a way that I thought I could care about them or show some service to them. And I didn't do that as a kid. But man, as a young adult, I became so subservient to other people's points of views as some sort of act of kindness, which was really unkind to me.
Yes. And that's what we do. We want them to feel good. We want to rescue them and, okay, I can validate you and all of that kind of stuff. And it's unkind to us. But I think when we're teens and young adults, we're trying to get it right. We're trying to find our place in the world and all of that.
As if there is one.
As if there is one.
When the whole world is your place.
Sitting in a tree in La La Land.
Yeah, and isn't that funny? I'm sorry to interject again right there, but it's like, I remember the first time Gary said, when you be you, everywhere is home.
Yes.
And the whole universe is the place for you. And yet, if you're functioning from trying to validate other people's realities, then you're trying to find one little place.
Yes.
And I remember when I was like, oh, so I have to be this, or this, and I have to pick one. Ew. I want all 3 and 100 more. And I immediately started getting sad and serious, being pressured to find my place, to pick a career, to pick a man, to pick a marriage, to pick if you're going to have kids or not. I was like, I thought I had the whole universe, and we do actually.
Yes, we do. And I think that's the most apt response to trying to fit in. Ew. It's like some stinky mass out there.
Don't make me.
Don't make me.
I'm going to be a bad attitude if you try to make me fit and follow rules. You're just going to have a grumpy pants on your hands.
Désirée DuMonde, grumpy pants.
It's true. I mean, and I hope
Me
that anyone
too.
out there that's a contribution to you. Like if you're grumpy, instead of judging yourself, like for me, when I get really crunchy or grumpy, I'm like, wow. So where what like containment have I put myself in? Because
Right.
clearly, like I've bought into some form of limited space or possibility.
Well, and I remember I was at a 7-day, which is a class access does, and I ran into someone there, and he said, "How are you this morning, Marilyn?" And I said, "I'm grumpy." And he said, "I hope you're magnificently grumpy." I said, "I am. I am totally magnificently grumpy."
Yeah, own it, live it, love it.
Own it, live it, love it. Exactly. It was really fun, actually. Well, recently, speaking of Gary and books and left turns, I think we have one more. You have run this amazing book club discussion of The Gift of Allowance by Gary Douglas. And for me, allowance is a total left turn. I'd love to hear you talk more about that, what it's meant to you, what it's created for you.
Yes. Well, especially recently, like the tool has always just melted like a fight in me somewhere I thought I had to fight for my my desires, or in order to have what I really desired, I would have to separate from something or fight for it. And it's
Yes.
taken a lot of access classes and growth and real healing for me to recognize, like, oh, that isn't really required.
Mhm.
So allowance has been sort of this thing that just always melted that fight energy, the protection energy, self-protection, separation from anything. And I didn't even always know how to articulate it. I would just ask for it. Like whatever that is, I'll
Yes.
have that. And I have a story the first time I perceived the energy of it, and then I'll talk about recently what the book club has really miraculously gifted me as of recent. But I was in my first advanced body class with Gary Douglas, and he was talking to me about a choice. I had a choice that I was kind of poo-pooing, like, well, this thing came up and like clearly all of me wanted to do it, but I had tons of reasons to reject it. And that was a moment of like, I want to do this, but it doesn't make any sense. It was a left turn. It didn't
Yes.
make sense financially. It didn't make sense on the calendar. I'd have to basically make no money and pay a lot of money to go do something that I had decided I had already, you know, been better than. Why should I go backwards? I had a bunch of points of view about it. And he was like, you're looking for a reason and justification rather than what it creates.
Yeah.
And when he asked that, I just got to this space of what it would create. And there was an allowance to perceive creation without a fixed point of view of the success or the money or the what does that mean about my job? I'm gonna have to quit what I am doing to go do that. And like all the computations just went away. And I perceived him being there with me, looking at the energy of what it would create, not just in the next couple of months, but create for me.
Wow. That's lovely.
And I was riveted. I
Yeah.
was riveted because of a million things. I still have tears and goosebumps for that one facilitation, because I had never cared about choices creating for me, my well-being, my passions, I had been modulating, like, yes, I'll do some things, but they still have to coordinate with my structured life. I can't just go off and sing, Gary, because I have a life. Was my point of view. Like, if it's not going to pay the bills, then I can't go just blossom into more of me. And he's like, and it was the first space of allowance. There was so much allowance for my true desire. And he held that space and I matched it. And it was the
Wow.
first time in maybe this lifetime or since I'd been a kid that I had allowance to perceive what I desired beyond the reasons, the money, the computations, the relationships, the blah, 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 blah.
That
It
is a lovely story. Really, just
yeah. And I chose to go, and it opened a million doors and still opening doors. And I gave life to a part of me that I thought had died.
wow.
And every day of that particular choice, which was to go to Sicily and sing for 3 months, my two favorite operas. Sounds crazy to reject it, but it didn't pay, and it didn't, it was, it had all these things to it, but I ended up getting to sing my two favorite roles. And the conglomeration of artists, when I arrived, it was like this guy from the Met and the tenor, the best tenor I've ever sung with. All of us were these like left turn misfit great musicians who were looking to, like, all of us arrived there. I had no idea I would have such high caliber colleagues that I had to stretch into, and we were just floating in Sicily making music.
That's beautiful. That's just lovely.
And every day I would say to myself, like, whatever that energy, Gary, was, I'm having that for me, whatever it was. And I later started to recognize it was an allowance for my desired reality.
Mhm.
Recently, with the book club and being really present with each chapter and what it's bringing up for me, it's also been a deeper journey of dissolving old family stuff and places that I have been doing the story of the past rather than allowance, and allowing myself to choose differently.
Mhm.
And it's opening doors to creation and business. It's allowing me to have an intimacy with myself, which then translates into caring for, say, my mom in a different way. The
Mhm.
way I was caring for her was at the cost of me.
Mhm.
And if any of you have ever been a caretaker or care for a family member and it's at the cost of you, you might want to read this book, because every single day I'm asking different questions, and I carry this baby around with me like my new Bible. And I immediately get to that. Caring for me is a caring, and if I care for me in this and I include me in this, it's almost a guarantee that it's going to have a better possibility of caring for the whole conglomeration,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Even
Yeah.
if it feels like a bad left turn. And some of the left turns I've been making recently is a willingness to have people who I care about really upset with me,
Yeah.
but knowing I'm caring greater for all of us. So it's like taking the slaps,
Yeah. Taking
and
the
the
hit.
negative feedback, and trusting me and watching it. Like, I know, watching what I'm doing, watching the business, knowing what I'm doing, knowing the future, trusting me, um, having allowance for me being a leader when I'm the baby of the family. I'm the airy fairy one, right? What do I know? So to have allowance for me as a leader and trust myself and see it generating a greater possibility has been tremendously healing for me. And also, no matter how much they want to fight, I'm getting these little windows of, thank you so much for doing that. Wow, I can sleep tonight, or I love you for the first time in my life, or things like
Wow.
that that have been pretty riveting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just lovely and brilliant. And that's such an example of when you have allowance for your desires, it creates greater for everyone.
It does.
And we're taught that it's going to do just the opposite, but it really does.
And I want to just say there, because these examples, like singing in Sicily is a desire, but I have a real keen sense of business and how to invest our family money and do things. Not everything, not all my innermost desires are um, singing and sparkling about. They will have that energy to them, but I'm really pragmatic and driven, and I know how to do stuff with money.
Yeah.
But if I have the judgment that I'm always like wanting these things, then I couldn't trust myself with the things that I'm actually really, I enjoy doing, and I enjoy infusing that with magic. But I just hope, if you're listening, whatever it is that you would like to trust you with and trust you more with, maybe trust you more with traveling alone and going off to Tuscany, or trust you more with your money flows, or trust you more in your marriage or your divorce, trust you more with being a parent or not being a parent. Like allowance is the mother lode. It's the golden key, really. If I really, for whatever reason, couldn't use anything but one tool, allowance is what I would take with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Desiree. This has been a really fun and brilliant conversation. And I know that a lot of people will be getting a lot from it.
Well, I hope so. And sorry, I just talk. This door.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Okay. I love it. I love this invitation you're being, and just to always remember a left turn might feel wrong, but when you have the allowance for you and it makes you strong, you would give it up for what reason? Like, I
Yes.
think this life journey, the blessing of being alive is to get to have all these experiences of trusting ourselves, and that's where the fun comes from. And thank you,
Yes.
Marilyn, because whenever I get to be with you or play with you, it reminds me of more I can choose, more I can be, and you are such an inspiration. So I just love that you're out there doing what you do, and thank you for you.
And thank you, and you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Left Turn. I wonder what embracing left turns could create in your life. What magical possibilities might show up. Remember, when you choose left turns, you are joining a group of the most creative and brilliant people the world has ever known.